Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I am especially excited because I get to talk about my very first Nami scooter, the Super Stellar. Now if you're not familiar with the Super Stellar, it is a dual motor, 52 volt, full suspension electric scooter which Nami claims will get up to 35 miles an hour as well as up to 47 miles in theoretical range. Now I've been eyeing the Nami brand for about the last year and a half or so, and actually almost pulled the trigger on a Klima on multiple occasions. In fact, just a couple months ago, a friend of mine let me ride around on his Klima and I immediately fell in love. So about a week and a half or so ago, I was browsing the wyrdryds website with the intention of pulling the trigger on a Klima, but I happened to stumble upon the Super Stellar. And if you followed my channel for a while, you'll know that I've got an affinity to scooters that are dual motor, smaller, a little bit more compact, but have the performance to back it up. So the Super Stellar was an obvious choice. Within about 5 or 10 minutes of seeing this, I actually placed the order and it actually arrived at my doorstep in fabulous condition a couple days ago. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do today is take you through the features, give you a closer look of this scooter, and then in follow-up videos I will do a first impressions ride. We'll do our range test, our hill climb test, our extreme hill climb test, our night rides. We're gonna do it all. I'll create a video series like I do with most of the scooters and e-bikes that I cover on this channel. So without further delay, let's jump into the details. All right, folks, so there is the Super Stellar in all of its glory. A couple little high-level stats. First off, Nami does say this weighs in at 29.9 kilograms, which comes in just shy of 66 pounds. Now, I did put this on our commercial scale here, and it looks like it actually weighs in at 67.5 pounds. So a little bit heavier than the packaging states. Another thing to mention about this scooter is when it comes to maximum load or maximum rider weight, the instruction manual clearly says 120 kilograms, which is about 265 pounds. However, stamped on the front of the scooter, the actual frame of the scooter, it states that the max load is 100 kilograms, which is about 220 pounds. So I will reach out to Nami and see if they can provide some clarity as to what their actual rider weight. I can't imagine it's 100 kilograms. Most scooters in this class support riders up to 120 kilograms, but as soon as I find out, I'll let you know. Now, taking a closer look at this scooter, it does have a very streamlined design. Kind of reminds me of a mini Nami Klima. And one of the first things I noticed about this scooter is it's got plenty of metal in its construction. There's very little plastic to be found on this scooter. You're mostly going to find that, in the fenders and, some of these like controller and wiring covers. But everything else is metal, which gives this scooter a very premium feel and also explains why it weighs, 67.5 pounds. So starting up front here, we do have these 9-inch by 2.5-inch tubeless pneumatic CST tires, and these things sit on a 6-inch rim. And as you can see here, we do have a street tread to it, which is what this scooter is designed for. This is more of a commuter scooter with a little more performance than you'd typically find in that segment. As I mentioned earlier, this is a dual motor scooter, and here up front we have motor number 1, which is rated at 1,000 nominal watts. Now, this scooter does come equipped with dual 25 amp controllers, which are actually housed under this plastic plate. And if we take our 52 volts times our 25 amps, that's going to give us 1,300 watts of peak power from each motor. So both the front as well as the rear here. So when we take that combined, that's going to be 2,600 watts of peak power, which means this thing should have no issues at all on our endurance hill climb test, as well as our extreme hill climb test over 23% grades. So we'll definitely see how this thing fares in our real world testing. Also up front here is going to be our solid forged aluminum swing arms, and then of course we've got a reflector as well as our axle nuts, which have these little protective covers on them. Over here we do have a suspension. So this is a full suspension scooter. It's not hydraulic, it is coil spring with rubber dampening, and I don't know how well you can see it in there, but there is a rubber cylinder within the actual spring itself, which should provide some dampening. We'll be definitely putting that to the test because I've ridden scooters that don't have dampening, and although they do a great job of absorbing impact, they do make clunking sounds when you go over, bumps, particularly at higher speeds. Now, if you're curious what the range of motion on the steering is, I'll go ahead and demonstrate that now. So as you can see, there is lots of range there. Won't be turning it that much, but one thing I do see is there's a little bit of tugging on these cables here when I turn it to the right. So I'll take a look at that, see if there's opportunity to put a little more slack in there, although I don't foresee that being a problem because I won't be turning it at that extreme of an angle. As we work our way back, you will find we do have our charging port, and this does have a nice spring-loaded charging port cover which automatically comes down. I don't see any kind of rubber gasket or anything in here, so we'll see how that holds up in wet conditions if I have the opportunity to ride around in the rain. I am in the desert, so we don't get a whole lot of that. But speaking of charging, it does come with a 2-amp charger. Now this is a 25 amp hour battery on board, 52 volts, so that's going to be approximately 1300 watt hours of capacity. Manual says 1277 watt hours, so there's going to be some rounding in there, but close enough. But anyways, at 25 amp hours, 2 amp charger, you're looking at approximately 12 and a half hours of charging time. So good news is it is a higher capacity battery, so you should be able to squeeze out more range between charges. When it comes to dust and water resistance ratings on this scooter, some of the electrical components are rated at IP65, whereas the scooter as a whole has an IP55 rating, which means you should be able to ride around in some light rainy conditions. However, I strongly urge caution because these scooter companies do not cover water damage, so you're on your own if you have some water-related damage. They don't know if you rode around in rainy conditions or if you left the scooter out in a torrential downpour or submerged the scooter, which is never recommended. So definitely, exercise some caution there. Now up top here we do have this plastic cover which is going to house a bunch of heat shrinked cables as well as your controllers. And just below that, I don't know if you can see this, but this appears to be the horn. And I'll tell you what, we'll do a little demo later, but this thing is loud as heck. It's like a motorcycle style horn, probably the loudest I've tested on an electric scooter. Working our way further back, you will see we've got a decent sized deck here. Should be more than enough for my size 10 shoe with one foot in front of the other. We'll definitely put that to the test. The deck is covered in this black grip tape with the Nami logo on it. Really nice to see, that way you're not sliding off the scooter. And then of course this deck is held down by these 6 hex screws, which basically hold down the deck and battery component. Here on the lower left side of the scooter, we do have this rather aggressive looking kickstand. It is spring loaded, and it's probably the beefiest kickstand I've seen on a commuter style scooter to date. But anyways, that shouldn't have any issues propping up this scooter. Working our way back, we do have this nice forged aluminum functional kick plate, which is very nice, especially when you're accelerating hard. It's good to have something to push off of and counteract that backward motion of your body when you're moving forward at high speed. Just in front of that, we do have this little hook that is welded in, and that's going to be for the folding stem, which I'll show you here in a moment. At the rear of the kick plate, we do have this tail light, brake light, and turn signal combo, and I will tell you right now, I am having an issue with this, and I emailed the company, I emailed Wyrdryds as well. I'll let you know what I hear back, but we do have some problems with the turn signals on this scooter. Just under the rear kick plate is our rear coil spring with rubber dampening. Then of course we've got our forged aluminum swing arms and then this nice little fender assembly. Now the fender does come in 2 pieces. So we've got this one here, it's pre-installed. Then we've got this rear tire hugger style one with the rear reflector. That is not pre-installed, but it's simple enough. You just attach it with these 4 hex screws, 2 on each side. One of the things that I love about this scooter is the fact that it does come with hydraulic brakes, and these are Logan hydraulic brake calipers, as well as 140 millimeter discs, which should provide more than sufficient stopping power, which we will of course be putting to the test. And of course at the front of the scooter we do have our other hydraulic brake assembly. And the last thing to talk about at the rear of the scooter is this 9" by 2.5" CSD tubeless pneumatic tire, as well as the 1000 nominal 1300 peak watt motor at its hub. Here at the front of the scooter we do have our latching mechanism for the folding stem, which I'll go ahead and demonstrate now. So in order to fold this stem down, you've got to undo this clamp here, and once that's undone you can just move the stem forward a little bit, which will allow this to move up, and then you can fold the stem down. And here at the rear of the scooter we do have that hook, and then of course on the stem you've got this latching mechanism, and you can just hook that into place, and now you can carry this scooter by the stem. Looking at the cable management on this scooter, things are nicely routed here from the neck of the scooter up into the stem, and as you can see, It goes all the way up and then comes back out again at the top of the stem. And they've got a really nice like cable splitter thing here with the Nami logo on it. And of course, it basically friction fits into this little plug, although it doesn't get in there very well, but it's enough to hold it in place. Just behind that, we do have the latching mechanism for our folding stem. And as we work our way forward, you will see this headlight. Now, Nami does claim this is 2000 lumens, and I will say this headlight does get very bright. I'm actually impressed because most headlights that come with scooters compared to this are piles of hot garbage, so kudos to Nami for putting a good headlight on here. Just above that headlight assembly is our front reflector, and as you can see here, we do have lighting here on the left side of the scooter as well as the right, and that's actually your ambient daytime running lights that also double as turn signals, which is really nice because a lot of scooters have turn signals in the rear but nothing in the front, which, you know, makes them half as effective. So really nice to see those on this scooter. I'll demonstrate those in a moment. Working our way over to the handlebars on this scooter, you will see that you've got some locking rubber grips here, which are actually very grippy, so that's nice to see. And because they're locking, these things won't twist around on you. Just in front of those are going to be our Logan hydraulic brake levers, which feel very smooth, but we'll definitely be putting the brakes to the test in future videos. Just underneath the handlebar, we do have our thumb throttle, which does have a very smooth feel to it. So when we go on our first impressions ride, we'll definitely see how that feel translates into power delivery. Here at the center of the cockpit, we do have our display, and you can actually turn that on by long pressing the power button. Once that goes, we will get an NFC readout. There it is. We'll go ahead and put our NFC card at the bottom of the display. And there you go. It is a full color display, which gives you your speed, which can be in miles per hour or kilometers per hour. You do have your miles on the odometer. If you hit the power button, you can actually cycle through to trip, as well as voltage, 57.7. Percent battery remaining, and then back to the odometer again. Just below that, we do have a battery readout, so I do have this thing fully charged right now. And then just to the right of that, you will see your mode selector button. This particular scooter has 3 modes, so we're in mode 3. We've got 2, and then of course we've got mode 1, and there's also kind of a pedestrian walk mode. Now this Super Stellar does give you the ability to go into an advanced settings menu, and you can actually get there by double clicking on the mode button. And as you can see, we are in the P1 menu. Now within that P1 menu, I'm going to read this out to you. Here are the things that you can adjust. You can adjust the rear motor starting power, the front motor starting power, the maximum permitted output for the rear motor, the maximum permitted output for the front motor, the maximum speed settings, as well as the electric brake strength, which you can set from 0 to 5. And then of course, since this is a Super Stellar, you can go in there and enable or disable turbo mode, which will give you up to 12% more top speed. Now looking at some of the other settings on this scooter, if we hit the plus button, it'll take us to P2. P2 basically will allow you to set the time to automatically turn the scooter off after inactivity. If we go to P3, that'll be your setting to change between kilometers an hour and miles per hour. P4 is the voltage setting, 48 to 72. This is a 52 volt scooter. That's why you see 52 volts on the screen. P5 is the number of magnets set in the motor. I wouldn't be playing around with that. P6 is going to basically be a kick to start setting. So by default, kick to start is off, but if you want to use that, you absolutely can. Going into P7, that's going to be your tire size. And the number of inches of the tire, that doesn't make sense. That's not 90 inches, but anyways, I think, oh, that's 9.0, so 9-inch tire. And then when we go into P8, I don't see anything in the manual for that. P9 is activation of a single or both motors. Now here on the left handlebars, we do have 2 control panels. This is the one that we were just using to cycle through the options on the screen. You can hit the power button to get out of that. We've got our plus button, minus button, power button, mode button. Here we've got a headlight button, so when you turn that on, this is where I have a problem with this scooter. It turns on the headlight. It should also turn on the tail light. It instead turns on the turn signal. So instead of getting a tail light, it actually turns on the turn signal. And watch this. If I hit the right turn signal button, it actually turns on the tail light. Now the left turn signal works just fine. But as you can see, it looks like hazard lights right now because the headlight button is tied into that turn signal. So something is jacked up with the wiring. I did email wyrdryds as well as Nami directly. It's the holiday, so I don't expect to hear back. But when I do, I will let you know. So as you can imagine, I wasn't thrilled to see a wiring issue out of the box. It just means that it was missed by quality control. Hopefully the fix is really quick, but I almost feel like it's one of those pranks, you know, where they rewire the brakes in the car with the horn. So every time you hit the brakes, you hear the horn. Anyways, it feels kind of similar, but hopefully I can get this situated here soon. Here's a view of the headlight as well as the daytime running lights in action. And when I turn the turn signals here, you'll see, there we go, very bright amber colored turn signals, and the front right turn signal works the same. And then of course we've got that rear brake light, rear turn signal, and then we've got that other turn signal which unfortunately, you know, turns on the tail light. But if I turn on the headlights, there's my right turn signal. Now the last thing on this control pad is the horn, and I'll warn you right now, this thing is loud. I'll go ahead and press it real quick. Yeah, it sounds like a motorcycle or car horn. It's definitely the loudest horn I've ever heard on a scooter, so that would probably be terrifying for pedestrians. But anyways, we'll see how it works in the real world. What I'll do right now is I'll show you what the speed looks like with no load on it in each of the mode levels. So right now we're in mode 1. I will push the throttle. There's definitely a dead zone there. And it's all the way in. And I'm seeing 8-9 miles an hour. We move this into mode 2, takes us to 19-20 miles an hour, and then we'll switch to mode 3, and that shows us 36 miles an hour on the display with some wobbling in the rear wheel. And there is a look at that rear wheel as we spool it up. And as you can see, there's a little bit of wobble in there, so these tires might need some balancing, but nothing too crazy. Now, I didn't show you the assembly of this scooter primarily because it was so simple, but I'll go ahead and walk you through what I did. The first thing you do when you get this thing out of the box is you extend the stem and lock it into place with this clamp. Just make sure it is nice and tight. And then you can actually come here and attach the handlebars, which you can do with these 2 hex bolts here. And then once those are on nice and snug and level and straight, you can actually just tighten down this top tube cap. The next thing you do is you attach the screen, which is basically placing it on here and tightening down 2 hex screws. And then finally, you just need to attach, where is it? There it is, that rear fender, which is 4 hex screws. And you're good to go. Now some key dimensions to call out with this scooter. The handlebars themselves are pretty wide at 27 inches wide. The distance from the very top of the deck to the top of the handlebars is approximately 41 inches. The deck itself is 8 inches wide by 18 inches long, so pretty decent foot space there. And then of course you've got that kick plate, which is going to provide you with an additional 5 inches of space. So now that I've gone over this scooter as well as its features in detail, what are some of my initial thoughts? Well, first and foremost, this scooter has a very premium feel to it, probably more so than most of the scooters that I've covered on this channel. And I think part of the reason that, it does feel premium is that plastic is to a bare minimum. This is mostly metal construction, which does come with a sacrifice. It is heavier at 67.5 pounds. So if you are going to be lugging this thing around, flights of stairs, that's definitely something to take into consideration. Now, on the flip side, the benefit of having a heavier scooter is that it's less likely to get thrown around, especially when you're riding on bumpy stuff at higher speeds. The next thing that I really like about this scooter is the control layout is very ergonomic and convenient. I don't have to take my hands off the handlebars to adjust any settings. Everything is within access of my fingertips as well as my thumbs. So kudos to Nami for, designing a real world, intelligently laid out control system. Another thing that I'm liking so far is the lighting on the scooter. Of course, we'll do our night rides and everything and fully put that to the test. But that headlight is brighter than a lot of headlights that I see that come with scooters. Unfortunately, we do have that issue with the headlight turning on the rear turn signal. And, that is a bummer, to have an issue, directly out of the box. But I'm sure we'll get that resolved shortly. And when we do, I might make a video or at least a short form video showing you how I fix that. But overall, the Nami brand is very highly regarded in the scooter industry, and it's part of the reason why I've been watching them from the sidelines for like the last year and a half, and I am very grateful that I finally had the opportunity to get my hands on my own Nami scooter through this Super Stellar. Now, in future videos, I will be doing a first impressions ride. That's going to be coming out in just a couple days. After that, we'll do a full range test. We'll do a endurance hill climb test up one of the mountains here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. That'll be like 1900 feet of elevation gain. And then, of course, we'll do our extreme hill climb test, which will take us upwards of 23% grades. We'll see how well these dual motors handle that type of situation. Then, of course, we'll do night rides. We'll ride around town, all that fun stuff. But let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Happy to address those. And if you do want to purchase one of these scooters, I will include an affiliate link to wyrdryds, as well as any available coupons. And if you use that link to purchase your Super Stellar, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.